Hi, everyone,
Hello, everybody.
and welcome back to another episode of the Pretty Guilty Podcast.
Yes, we have another guest star today. We have Miss Piggy.
She's our special guest on this episode. She's going to give us her feedback on the latest and greatest.
Usually you see Dally, but today Miss Piggy said, move over, Dally. I need some light.
Some pink light.
Yes.
You need the pink light.
Does the body good.
Yeah, absolutely. So this week we're going to talk week 3 of the Karen Read trial. It was I guess, less uneventful week.
Yes.
We had one day Karen was sick, allegedly, in court, so they canceled court.
They canceled court altogether.
Then the next day we had John's niece testify in the morning, so that was not televised. She is a minor.
Yes.
So there was no video, no audio of her testimony. So I know it's like 1.25 days of testimony, but it felt like forever. Everybody was like, what do I do? My show's not on.
Literally, when court was canceled on Tuesday, I was like, what am I supposed to do now? And I have all this free time. I can actually get something done. But then the anticipation, because you have to remember, we came off of a week where there was a lot of intense cross testimony, or I guess cross-examination. You know, actually people were saying a lot originally, like how it was kind of a dud of a week in the trial, but I actually thought there was a lot of small things that happened that were very big.
Yeah.
Especially when we're looking at evidence to determine, you know, guilt or innocence.
The prosecution objected their own witness. And that speaks to what happened this week.
The amount of flashbacks that everybody did to that movie, Liar, Liar. Do you remember that when Jim Carrey was like, I object to his own witness? I mean, who could not have just rewinded to that movie and been like, wow, that's literally playing out in real time here, which an embarrassment for the Commonwealth. Their case is every day just falling apart.
We say this every episode. The Commonwealth case, flimsy on a good day, and then you have the Commonwealth's witnesses. Mind you, they went and added a ton of witnesses because they understand that their case is not super strong, and their witnesses just keep coming out and backfiring on them. And this time it was to the nth degree. I mean, they're objecting their own witness.
You know, the thing is we're finally seeing actual testimony from people who are being honest with their testimony. We have the medical examiner. We had Maureen Hartnett. We had, some forensic scientists from the Massachusetts State Police Department. I don't think that they were involved in any collusion. Mm-hmm. Of course, they know these officers and such, so their testimony ends up being true, but the truth in it is backfiring on the Commonwealth too as well.
Absolutely. The week 2 was really a week.
It really was. Yeah.
Mr. Sergeant Buchanan up there on the stand.
Yeah. Between Alan Jackson and Buchanan, it really was a lot of back and forth. So people kept complaining this week, like, wow, it's so quiet.
It was. Yeah. It felt very quiet. So
very much so.
We want to talk. There wasn't a ton that happened, but we just want to touch on a couple topics. This isn't going to be a super long video.
No, just a quick update.
Yeah, touch on a couple of things that we thought were very interesting. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So I want to talk about one of the most pivotal parts in this week's testimony, which was the medical examiner.
Yes, the medical examiner, Dr. Irini, hold on, let me check my notes here because I didn't want to mess up her name. Dr. Irini Scordi-Bello. I didn't know how to take her testimony, just her demeanor on the stand originally. She would testify with her eyes closed, and she would take a lot of kind of deep breaths, almost as if she was irritated or in like meditation on the stand. She would just go. And I thought, what is she doing? But sometimes I feel like I've seen doctors that are like that. They're really intelligent. They're just somewhat awkward. And, she's on the stand testifying. But one thing I thought that was very pivotal about her testimony was regarding the intake document that was noted when they originally got John O'Keefe's body. It was not by her, but it was from somebody else who wrote down the information and had documented that there was a body, or I guess John O'Keefe was saying that he was walking towards a home, and there was some kind of altercation, and that had caused the injuries to his body, which I thought that was very interesting because to me, when I look at the word altercation, by definition, I don't think we ever see altercation mixed in with the word of vehicle collision. And so the two definitely are separate meanings. So what was reported to them early on, which let's go back to Buchanan, who called the medical examiner's office in testimony at 10:41 a.m. and had advised the medical examiner's office that there was an altercation. So those two things actually,
with a cocktail glass.
with a cocktail glass, that there was smashed in the face. So those two things actually really lined up. And I thought, okay, Houston, we've got a big problem here. Like, I think that was very, very huge this week for sure. So
Absolutely. No, and something that I always think is really interesting when I think back to Karen Reed saying that she saw John in the snow and she noticed glass in his face, not on his face, but stuck in his face, and she picked it off, to get it out. And when she did, he was bleeding. There's the cocktail glass that was found at the scene, not the taillight pieces,
right,
but the cocktail glass that was found at the scene. It was a red cocktail glass. I think we're all very curious as to what happened with that cocktail glass, but it being smashed into his face. And then Buchanan reporting to the medical examiner that looked to be an altercation with a cocktail glass specifically is what he said. And then the medical examiner is saying, yeah, someone advised me that, there was an altercation.
When the medical examiner was on the stand and she was discussing this information, there's objection by the Commonwealth, and then the judge sustained the objection and told the defense to move on, that essentially, and then reminded the jury that they have to forget what was said. And we have said time and time again, would you forget if you were a juror that this information is being never?
It's locked in.
Yep. You say that every time. Locked in.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Which, so Maureen Hartnett, she is with the crime lab from the Massachusetts State Police. She testified this week as well. She talked about when she went to the Canton Police Department. Quick rewind back to the medical examiner, because there's many different things that she said. One of them was that there was a photo that was shown in court. Mm-hmm. Do you remember when Keefe testified and he had said that he was the only one there at the autopsy?
Yeah.
This photo then showed who in the autopsy room when it was being performed. Do you have any guesses? Who would it be?
You got me a dictionary.
Let me get the Webster's. Hold on. I left it in the other room. Yes, so it was Michael Proctor who was in the room. And again,
are we shocked?
Are you surprised?
I could never be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, no. Which I really feel like this week fed a lot into showing how Michael Proctor was really involved in every aspect of this investigation.
You turned around, he was there. He's like that song, I'm always watching you. Every turn you take,
Like the butler, Mr. Deeds.
Absolutely. It's giving Mr. Deeds butler for sure. So also, the Commonwealth decided to change the timeline this week, which was not shocking. I mean, it would be such a Commonwealth thing to do. We're in the second trial. They've had the same timeline for all of these years through the first trial. Now we're in the second trial, and we're in week 3 of the second trial.
Right.
And they decide they want to change the timeline because they say that John O'Keefe's phone locking was delayed by 20 seconds, that it was technically 20 seconds ahead or 20 seconds behind.
It was like 21 to 29 seconds ahead. Right.
Yeah. And so they're saying that pushes the timeline.
So their argument is that the timeline is still going to be the same, but instead of the phone locking that 21 to 22 or 29 seconds later, that it actually locked around that original time, which was what was it, at 12:31? No, you're right. The phone locked at 12:32 and some seconds when he was supposed to be hit by Karen Reed at 12:31. So there, and some seconds as well.
Essentially, they're saying that if she hit him at 12:31 and his phone locked at 12:32, even though it's just by a few seconds, they're saying that he was, mind you, I guess he could have been laying there locking his phone. Well, I would think if he was laying there awake and his phone was there, he would have called for help. So I don't imagine that him locking the phone was
right. Locking a phone would be the opposite of what you're trying to do when you're trying to call somebody to get help.
On the iPhone, click the button, the side button. Is it 2 or 3 times? 3 times in a row? Then you get an option for emergency services. Right. So, who's to say he wasn't trying to hit the side of his phone and get emergency services? I don't know what happened. I just know that their timeline is, like you said, it's the same. They're keeping the same times, but they're testifying in court that the phone is not leading. that the phone is not lining up with their timeline. And so then, of course, the Commonwealth comes by and says, well, there's a 29-second delay that we've never heard of.
Right. That was the thing, that we haven't heard of this delay before. So, and again, they told the judge, so they had a discussion on this outside the jury, of course, and they said, we're not changing the timeline. But the phone locking, if you were to sync that up with the actual time that they're saying that he was hit by the vehicle, then it's the same. And I guess an example of it in my mind, I think about it with, like, you have a microwave and then you have an oven, right? So you set your time at like 12:31 on the microwave and 12:31 on the oven, and one will turn sooner than the other, but it's the exact same time. Like, time stands still between the two of them. And so that is their argument. But the defense argued and said, listen, you want this timeline this whole time to be one certain narrative. Now you want to change the narrative, so you have to allow us time to rework our defense around this timeline. Alessi said, we need 4 days to do this.
And what do you think Judge Bev said?
Well, first she said, I'll think about it, which she probably went back and defiled her nails and got a foot massage. I don't know what she did back there, but of course she denied it. And so she's going to allow this expert testimony in, and then told Alessi, which she's not wrong. He's very intelligent. He's a brilliant attorney, actually, very intelligent. And so she tells him, I believe
in you.
Yeah.
You're doing amazing, sweetie.
Yeah. You got this.
Right. She essentially is saying that he's very capable of creating his case around this detour, if you will. Think quickly on your feet about, what you're going to do, and hopefully you swim and don't sink. And that's such a Judge Bev thing to do.
Well, it really is. The Commonwealth, they're back there just high-fiving. The
defense, they feel like that was a slam dunk.
The defense will come out with something, but she did say that if he needed to recall witnesses, aka Jennifer McCabe, specifically, she mentioned her name and any other witnesses, that she would take that into consideration when it came time.
You just know that Jen McCabe was spitting out her coffee.
Jen McCabe thought she was all done, all done. And you imagine.
That would make my day. Actually, I think the Commonwealth made a good decision.
All right. They would just to have to call her.
If we also get another Sergeant Buchanan, I probably would be thrilled.
No, Jennifer McCabe, nobody wants to come and retestify, but I would love to see that testimony again.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. One of the other things, real quick before we end this, and then we're done because it's not too much to recap, but on Maureen Hartnett. So again, she's with the crime lab. What she did is she collected evidence from the SUV when it was taken to the Canton Police Department. So she found glass on the bumper, the rear bumper of the Lexus, and she also found a hair that appeared to belong to a male. It wasn't long. She mentioned that hair was essentially easy to take off with tweezers, and that glass was not embedded in the bumper of the SUV. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's the strongest piece of hair I've ever heard. I mean, this piece of hair has driven down the highway. This piece of hair has gone through blizzards. This piece of hair has gone through America and back and stood on that bumper as a sole piece of John O'Keefe's hair.
A soldier fighting a war.
Yeah, truly. And the glass not being embedded, it's the same thing. And also, I did see where they were talking about how, there's a lot of salt. If you're not from a snowy town, they put salt down to help, traction in the snow so you don't slide around. And so they were talking about how on the inside of the light, there was no salt. But every other part of Karen Reed's car had salt in it. So what they're saying is that the plastic of the taillight was not broken when she was driving all around Canton in her vehicle. And they're saying that this shows that it happened at the police station because there's no salt in the light.
Inside the light there, which there was, what was her, Ashley, I forget what Ashley's last name was, but she is also from the crime lab. And so she was talking about the taillight when she tested it. There were pieces missing when she put it back together. There was a chunk missing from it too also. With Maureen back on that, the glass and the hair, I would like to point out that they retrieved the SUV from Karen's parents' home and took it to Canton Police Department, and that is an approximate 34-mile drive. When this snowy condition, it was probably, you're looking at 45 minutes to an hour that glass and that hair hung on.
Yeah.
For dear life.
For dear life.
Yes.
Just fleeing in the wind, almost at the sun.
The only last thing is Andre Portnow, I think his name was. He was on the stand as well. He's also from the crime lab. He did test DNA. And there was there was John's DNA essentially found
with
on
2 other people, right?
With 2 other people on some of the items, and those individuals are unknown. Even if Karen Reed's DNA was on one of them, there's still one person missing on a few of those items.
But my argument, not argument, but my thought process with that is, if it was Karen Reed's DNA, don't you think that they would say it was Karen Reed's DNA?
You would think. I don't know how far what they all obtained of her, because they did do the blood alcohol content. So I'm assuming when she was at the hospital, they probably obtained some other samples. So you would think so. I think there's so many people with him, first responders, Karen Reed laying on top of him, the resuscitation, all the transportation of all of that. It's really hard. So I think that DNA is not going to be, it's kind of neither here nor there. They never did any testing for Michael Proctor. They never did any testing for Buchanan. They never tried to see if their DNA matched on him at all, although they did do buccal swabs on Buchanan and Michael Proctor as well.
Yeah.
And there was a testimony, Needham Police Department. That's all he testified for. He got up there and he was like, yeah, I did, buccal swabs of them. And then he got down like, thank you, have a great day. And I'm sure the jury's like, what was that about?
Yeah.
But I think it shows we took the swabs and we never tested anything against it.
Yeah.
So again, it's just kind of part of the cover up, I feel like.
Do you think that Brian Higgins or Michael Proctor is going to be called this week?
No.
I don't think so either.
No. Do you think the state, the Commonwealth's going to rest its case this week?
I think depending on what the defense comes back with, given this detour, and I don't know, I think it'll be interesting. The Commonwealth keeps throwing these weird curveballs at us, and they're grasping for straws. They really, really are.
That's what they must do at the end of court. Go back and be like, okay, what can we do now? They are going to put that expert on the stand. I think that will come this week. The one regarding the time difference on the phone and when he was essentially hit. Because the 2 time differences, just to clarify, is the time from the iPhone, and then it was when an event had occurred in Karen's car. And so that's what they're saying. So whatever that clocked out in her vehicle and the iPhone are the differences. So we'll see what that expert has to say. And then I think the defense is going to come out just swinging bigger than they were before.
I think so too.
Yep.
I think absolutely. So, well, that's all we really have for you guys on the Karen Reed update. We knew this would be a short video. We just wanted to kind of
do a recap for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, like the video, subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you think that Michael Proctor or Brian Higgins are going to be called. Do you think the prosecution is going to rest their case? And what do you think the jury is going to do? Find Karen Reed guilty or not guilty? So let us know in the comments. Thank you guys so much, as always, for all of your support. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.